Hello, pile one, to this reading on what you're bringing to life. Now, this first half of the reading, which is all oracle cards, is answering the question of the circumstance of your current circumstance, basically. So it is partially a way for you to see if you're at the right reading. But also, it's also meant to kind of give a little bit of insight as to why things might be the way that they are right now. Because this first card over here is answering the question of what life or divinity, whatever you believe in, is guiding your life, what they are presenting to you, their part in your current circumstance. So the way that I'm kind of seeing it is kind of like when we cook something, we put a whole bunch of ingredients into a pot, so to speak, or whatever we're using to cook in, and as we heat them, it creates like this chemical reaction to then end up with our desired dish, so to speak. And the way I'm kind of seeing it here is this card is answering the question of life's ingredient in the dish that is your life and circumstance. This card over here answering the question of your ingredient, what you are bringing to the table to create your circumstance, and the three cards down here and like kind of elaborating on what the circumstance itself is, the chemical reaction itself, what is being created by the meeting of what life is providing and how you're meeting it, and what that meeting, that union, that chemical reaction is creating, that is a circumstance of your life. So clearly with the jealousy card, two things that I want to say here. The first of which is, for all of you, we're honing in on feelings of jealousy, whether you are feeling them or not, because a lot of this reading is really demonstrating that you are above the presentation of something to make you jealous. So okay, what I wanted to differentiate, the two things that I wanted to say is, for those of you who you are being presented with something you know is being done to make you jealous, so someone from your past doing something out of pocket that it's intentional, for a fact it's to get a rise out of you. What this card is saying here, as jealousy being part of the divine ingredient, what life is doing, is that it's not so much that it's written in life, it's your fate for this person to be an asshole for you. It's not so much that, so much as it's life, or whatever you believe in, kind of wanting to see how you're going to react to it. And again, a lot of these cards really demonstrate that you are aware of that. You can see past the veil of, I'm not meant to react to this. And good, I'm glad you're not. Why I'm so sure of that, and before I get to that, the second thing that I want to say, if you, that's what I was saying there is really only for those of you that something's being done on purpose. For the rest of you, it's coming across more as, there are things in your vicinity, or a thing, or people, whatever the case is, that you are having feelings of jealousy, of envy, whatever the case is, where you're having a natural human reaction to what's being put in front of you. And again, what I was saying for that first group, it's true for you as well, where it's life's ingredient. It's meant to be happening right now, because the reactions that you're having, that it's on purpose. You're meant to gain data for you to make decisions and make moves from the reactions that you're having to this stimuli, so to speak. Messiah here as your ingredient, it reads, because in its light attribute it came up upwards, serving humanity with humility. Very epic wording, because it's that idea. I mean, it's Messiah, so it's huge, right? And maybe there is a component to that where you've grown, or maybe you've healed so much that this attempt at jealousy, or whatever you're in front of, that is creating those reactions out of you, you can transcend above it, because there's a wisdom to you that's really being articulated by the card Messiah, where it's not just that you are humble, and it's not just that you're taking this on without, because the Messiah, the whole point is that they're taking on some form of brutality with humility, with no reaction, very passively, but it's that reaction that's revolutionary. So it's passive only in definition, it's revolutionary to not react to such brutality. And in not reacting, that in itself is a huge message. Sorry if religion and Christianity is a trigger for you, but the whole point of Christianity is that his crucifixion and the fact that he took that punishment on, even though he knew it was coming and it was all for humanity. It was him not resisting that brutality. He never ran. He never tried to. It was just kind of one of the things he knew was going to happen, and so he took it on, and that is regarded as this huge act of love, right? And so that's where Christianity stems from. And so that's kind of what I'm getting, where it doesn't necessarily have to be that huge for you. It could be, again, like maybe what happened between you and whatever is trying to make you jealous or creating that reaction from you. Maybe there are really deep feelings attached to that. Maybe there are huge hurdles, emotional hurdles that you've overcome to get to the place where you're at now. Whatever the case is, whatever that stimuli is that's creating that reaction, you are coming across with the Messiah card as bigger than whatever is in front of you. So if that's coming across as kind of like a surprise for you, if it's kind of one of those things where it's like, but I actually do feel overthrown by this or overwhelmed by this, the Messiah card here and the rest of these cards, which I'm going to get into, are really elaborating that you actually do have every capacity to transcend, to it's just about you recognizing that you don't feel as heavily as you have felt at one point, if that's the reason you feel like, you are feeling okay. Let me be clearer about what I'm trying to say here. If you are currently feeling overwhelmed by those feelings of jealousy or envy, like I was saying earlier, understand that that's a human reaction. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you feeling the feelings that you're feeling. The whole point of this message is, or rather what the Messiah card is saying is, you do have the capacity, and if not the capacity, it is part of your duty, your next step, to learn how to grow bigger than what is creating that reaction out of you. Because at the end of the day, all feelings are data. All feelings really, we gain a lot from sitting down and trying to get to the root of why we're feeling anything that we're feeling. So, let's say the obvious example here is like an ex trying to make you jealous, but to kind of broaden it a little bit, let's say it's an old boss who you quit that job, and for whatever reason you still have access to like their social media, maybe not your bosses, but like your old coworkers, or maybe like the joint itself that you worked at has a social media account, and so you have a way of accessing things that they're doing. And all of a sudden, after you quit because of how shitty it was, things start changing. And all of a sudden there's like pay time off, and there's like a day of the week where the bosses bring in treats or whatever, and everybody got a pay raise, and whatever. It's like all of these things that you're recognizing are meant to just want you to go back there, or whatever the case is. And so, okay, if you've grown to the point, or even if you haven't, like even if you're at a point where you're looking at those things and like, damn, did I leave too soon, or whatever the case is, or if you're at a point where it's like, that's dumb, I'm glad I left. Wherever you're at, sitting down and questioning why you're feeling whatever it is that you're feeling. So the easiest thing to, if you've done the work to heal whatever feelings you might have felt about leaving that place or that person, and you are in a wiser place where you do recognize, you can see past the sham, and then sitting down with those feelings is really easy. It's easy to understand why you're over it. It's because you've processed things, or because you never had the attachment to that place that much in the first place. Whatever the case is, if you don't have too much of an emotional reaction to it, then there's not much to question. But if you are, then why? Ask yourself honestly, why do you feel jealous? Why do you feel envious? And okay, in that example of like, okay, if you're feeling jealous of your old coworkers because they're now getting the benefits that you asked for and didn't get when you were there, let's take a moment. And I'm not, I'm just picking that up as an example. Wherever your case is, if you can justify the reasons for why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, then let's take a moment to actually sit in that feeling. Because if it's justified, if it's like, okay, it actually does suck that like that thing is happening that I'm jealous or envious of, let's acknowledge that. Like for all of us here, whether we're over it or not, like, and well, if we're over it, we don't need to acknowledge it. But like, if you are, let's just take a moment to just feel the feeling because it's valid, it's there, cool. But let's make sure that that's not all we're doing with it, because the Messiah card here, which again takes on a bit of a tinge of harshness to the humility, humility in the face of harshness rather. So it's also about the work of then digging into that feeling and doing that work and digging into it, transcending it. So maybe that example was not a good one, because it's like, okay, that would be a good reason to be jealous if like your old job, started to make changes after you'd left. And if that's an example that you're going through and like it is on the table for you to go back with those benefits and maybe even a pay raise because maybe you were the reason that those things happened in the first place, then maybe those feelings, in that case, those feelings are like valuable data because it denotes that you actually do want to go back. However, let me be very careful. That is not for those of you, especially for those of you for whom going back is a bad thing. I am looking at those of you who who have those toxic exes, and if not toxic, then just exes we know we shouldn't go back to. We really shouldn't ever go back, no matter what the situation. I don't know. I believe that. Let's not move backwards. It's always forward, right? So that's just me personally. Anyways, moving forward. Exactly, moving forward. It's just, if you know you shouldn't be going back, then feel those feelings and don't allow for those feelings to be stronger. Don't let those feelings rule you. The point of Messiah being that you handle the feeling of jealousy or envy responsibly is the first thing I want to say, but ultimately handle it in a way that is not only beneficial to you but to everyone involved, like a Messiah serving humanity, everyone, with humility. So okay, to get into the current circumstance, and these three cards are really what's denoting to me that you're either at a place where you can see clearly that this isn't something you're meant to react to and you're just ready to move past it. And if you are feeling whatever you're feeling, this is what's kind of... Okay, let's just get into it. Lapis is a demonstration of power. Not so much that you've done anything to demonstrate your power. It could be that. It could be that the way that you're living in now, it clearly demonstrates how much growth you've done, how much healing you've done, the way that you carry yourself. It's so clear cut to the people around you that you are not the person you were in the past. If that isn't true, then it's that it exists inside of you. The whole point of this card is that you are not who you have been in the past, and in fact who you are today is eons away from where you started. So that wherever you're at in that spectrum, whether you are currently eons from where you've been or whether you're at a place and you need that affirmation that you can in fact move eons from where you're currently at. Glasses in the center, clear cut is just saying clear vision, the clarity that you have. So if you are currently in this place of power where you're carrying yourself in a way that demonstrates the growth and the development that you've put into yourself, then the glasses is talking about the clear vision you have moving through your life and why you can see these things clearly. If you're still together, you're working on getting to that place of power, or practicing that, and not getting to that place of power rather, but practicing that power that is inside of you, then glasses is an indication of, okay, it's basically saying that in order to have this clear vision, you need to first not only make contact with your power, but wield it, practice with it, use it, basically. In that power being, sitting with these emotions, processing them, alchemizing them, transcending them, moving forward. So that clear vision, which is the prerequisite of that clear vision being your power. And the result of these things, the clear vision, once you start to see things clearly because you're wielding your power successfully. Shaggy, chill, just chill energy. Yes, usually Shaggy is a very cowardly person, but the thing is, if you know Scooby-Doo and you watch Scooby-Doo, then if he's somehow has like made some type of food and it's in front of him, and at that moment the ghost shows up and he has to run away, he's gonna make sure that he's cool-minded enough to prioritize that thing that he just made. So even in the face of danger, he still remains somewhat cool and collected enough to prioritize what he needs to prioritize. So okay, wherever you're at, in that, whether you're living and leading by your power and demonstrating it and everybody can see it clearly, or you're in the process of wielding it and practicing it and getting, to a place where it is clear to everybody around you that you're living in this space and getting that clear vision and getting to that chill energy. This is your reading. Hi, welcome. This is particularly the aspect of your life that this reading is gonna elaborate on, because the tarot cards are basically answering the question of what you're bringing to life because of this circumstance. So because you are transcending, or because you are capable of transcending these feelings of envy and jealousy, and on your way to clear vision, or you have clear vision and a deep internal chill, because of that, let's see what is coming to life for you. Okay, so first of all, sorry that I can't, they're not all showing. They don't all fit with the Zoom that I have. So I apologize in advance if that is something that bothers you. But it's just, we're working with what we got. And I also, if you didn't notice, had to cover some of the cards because YouTube is weird. So, okay, there's definitely at least one of you for whom I was picking up on something when I made that example of the job in the past, I'm saying because of the Three of Pentacles here. But okay, whatever the case is, okay, point blank, to answer the question of what you're bringing to life, what's coming to life because of the circumstances that you've created that we talked about in the first half. In essence, it's a stronger self. If you are part of the camp where you are in a place of power and you are leading by that power, and it's, everybody around you can see clearly who it is that you are and how far you've come. Obviously, that was part of the desired result with what was going on in the past, or whatever's currently going on. And that's true even if you're not there yet. Getting to a point of power, wielding that power successfully, that was part of the whole point of you going through whatever it is that you went through and what you're currently going through, feeling whatever feelings you're feeling. And that's all valid. And that's all true. But what is really being highlighted, what you're being asked to hone in on, or wield more properly, or wield more intentionally, rather, is the part of you that is now able to really take a stand for yourself or for anybody else that you might feel the need to stand up for, in the face of real harsh adversity. So these three cards are basically a picture of what happened in the past to create your current circumstance, which is being represented by the Empress being you, the empowered, strong self, facing the Devil, which is the clear archetype for any type of adversity, any type of antagonistic energy, whatever it might be. And kind of to put it clearly before I get into the specific cards and what each one means and how I'm interpreting them, kind of how I'm seeing it is, to give you an example, if part of the whole past thing is to stick to that example of the job, you're not going to go back, then having those experiences, what these cards are saying is what's coming to life is a you that is going to go, is never again going to go into a job that where the circumstances that existed there are gonna be possible again. It's basically to a point where it's changed you so much that you're never gonna do things in the same way. Whatever example is true for you. If it's that it was a relationship, the relationship and what's gone on here, whatever you dealt with and whatever you've overcome because of this individual, moving forward, yeah, you're never gonna do that again, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just how you carry yourself and the decisions that you're making moving forward for yourself. Yeah, you're never going to do those things again because you've learned so much to not go through those things again. But what I'm really getting from the Empress facing off with the devil is that because you're doing that, because you can do that, you're going to be able to face off against quote unquote stronger adversaries. And that's not to fearmonger, that's not to scare you, that's not to like let you know, ooh, there's gonna be scarier things to deal with in the future. No, not at all. But it's rather that you can meet those things. What you might at one point or even now feel is scary, you might be surprised to find you can actually rise up to meet. And it's because of these circumstances that you've had in the past, that you've transcended, that you've overcome, wherever you are in that process. The Empress is really telling me that, like, it really comes off as, like, this doesn't have to be true for you, but just to give you an idea of how these cards are coming across. Like, because of what you went through, you became, just an example, just again to kind of give you the energy that I'm getting, you took it to the point where you became a lawyer and you became a divorce lawyer. So you could make, you had such a crazy divorce that you became a divorce lawyer so you could make sure that no one would ever again have to go through what you went through, or at least help defend someone who you might see as in your circumstance. You will know how to deal with that because of the circumstances that you've been through and overcome. If you had, like, you know, God forbid, and trigger warning for domestic violence here, if that's something that you experienced in the past, it might go to the point where you start a nonprofit or something to the benefit of victims of domestic violence, something to the point where you're going beyond just making sure that you're never hurt again. You're going to the point of taking it beyond that, where you want to help other people in whatever circumstance you might have found yourself in the past that has created everything that you're currently going through. Why am I saying that? Because let's start with the Three of Pentacles reversed. And the Three of Pentacles, very on theme here, because the Three of Pentacles upwards is a circumstance or something that's being created by multiple people. So collaboration with other people and what that creates. So a work environment, a home environment, whatever environment multiple people are creating by their union and collaboration or interaction. And it coming up reversed is really, you know, giving it that negative tinge where what was being created in the past that you were a part of wasn't the best. It was something that you wanted to get away from. The Hanged Man reversed tells me two things. One, this place that you were at was so dire, was so against who you were, that it really either stifled your intuition, whatever that is to you, and if not your intuition, then yourself. It got in the way of, like, maybe your health, or it sucked up all your time so that you had no time for yourself, for the things that you cared about or love. The Hangman reversed is really, because the Hangman upwards is a suspension of movement, a suspension of like self. But when it's upwards, it's for the purpose of the higher good. So, like, an example of the Hanged Man would be like going to school, where you're taking time away from the things that you might want to do, or from working, or whatever the case is, so that you can go to school and get a degree to then later be able to make more money or get a better career or work at what you want to work at. And so then, like, the Hangman upwards is, you know, something for the higher good, but then reverse, that suspension is still there, but it is no longer for our best. It's no longer for the best. It's a waste of time, rather. So maybe, okay, not a waste of time because you grew a lot from it, obviously, but it's rather that the suspension of time, if you had stayed there, it wouldn't have helped you grow. That's what, it was a dead end kind of a thing. That's what I kind of meant to say about it. The Page of Cups reversed. Okay, here's where I have to, like, talk a little bit about how I see the Hanged Man, because whenever I see the Hanged Man, I always attach it to the reversals, because the Hanged Man, when he's upwards, can see the reversals clearly from his perspective, because he's upside down. And Okay, so let's look at these three cards upside down so that you can see the way that these three cards really being what was happening in the past. So this is the circumstance that you're in, the environment that's being created by you and the other people wherever you were at in the past. The Hanged Man is the suspension of movement because of this thing that you're attached to. But when we look at it this way, the Hanged Man is also upwards, meaning that whatever was happening here, and when it's upwards in this way, I do regard the arrows here, the pain, as the cost of staying in this place. And then when it's upwards, it's the gaining of knowledge, because the Hanged Man, besides being a suspension, for the higher good is a prevalent notion, component of the Hanged Man. So it's not just a suspension of time, we're gaining something from it. So there's something to, the Hanged Man here being a reference to how that recognition you had, that you had to get out of there, that there was more for you, that this wasn't for you. The Hanged Man is accepting that truth, that there's better for us out there. And so the Page of Cups is a representation of you accepting that truth and moving in a different way, because we move from Pentacles into Cups. And Cups energy is emotional matter. So the Page of Cups is also kind of telling me that part of it, like you gave your feelings the merit that they deserved, because your feelings were telling you that you didn't want to be in that space anymore. And so that truth is what helped you to move out of there. And so that's why they're all coming up reverse, because that's no longer true anymore. And what is true because of these things, the result, the Empress there after these cards. And so the Empress, the picture of abundance, the picture of wealth, and whether that's true or not for you in a tangible way, the wealth that I'm seeing with the Empress is that power that I'm talking about you have access to, where it's not just this power that you get to wield for yourself, where, okay, you've grown and you're stronger because of it, and you'll move in a way that you'll avoid a repeat of those past circumstances because they sucked. But again, like I was picking up on earlier, like I was saying, that idea of taking that to the next level, taking that to the point where you are helping others, and it doesn't have to be that intense or that where you're helping a whole bunch of people and starting a nonprofit. It could just be to the point where, like, moving forward, you're gonna find, like, it could just be as simple as you'll find yourself having the courage to speak up where in the past you wouldn't have. And it doesn't have to necessarily be regarding whatever it was that led to that strength. So if the circumstance that led to this strength, the abundance of power and self-empowerment that we're talking about with the Empress, if what created that was an ex, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that in the future you'll be able to face off against, the people that you're with in a relationship, your significant other, or you're only going to speak up in matters of relationships. What I'm seeing here is, like, because you went through those things, you'll be able to, like, apply that strength anywhere. So an example I'm kind of getting in my head is, because of the things that you've gone through, you're gonna say something when you see some bullshit at the store with someone's treating the cashier like shit and you don't like that. You're gonna say something because you're just that type of person now, where you understand that you have the capacity to say something, you do have that courage within you, so you're gonna make use of it. Whether you see that clearly now is kind of irrelevant, because again, this whole part of the reading is what you're bringing to life, so it's kind of like it's new, you're breathing life into it, so it's really for you to step into and grasp. It's the Empress, it's an intentional application of power, an intentional application of strength. So it's not just brute strength, it's not just brute power, it's not just demonstrating it for the sake of demonstrating it because we have it, it's not showing it off. It's an understanding of, I have to say something. This is a place where I have the words, I have the position to say something, so I'm going to. Where in the past you might have chosen not to. To close out this reading, we have this mini Divi card here. It could have to do with your reading, it could not. It usually does. Let's see what we have here. The Crying Ghost. This will pass. So That's coming clearly for those of you who are currently, you aren't fully feeling this empowerment that I'm talking about with the Empress. You are maybe feeling overwhelmed by those feelings of jealousy or envy. You don't feel fully over the things that you're currently overwhelmed by. The crying ghost is that affirmation from divinity, that from life itself, from yourself, that this will pass. For those of you who aren't there, you don't feel overwhelmed. Okay. For those of you, okay, honestly, I'm going to be real honest with you. For those of you who are overwhelmed, and who are currently overwhelmed by those things, the crying ghost, as your departing message is saying, this will pass, you will get to a point of power and empowerment where these things are a thing of the past and you've grown past them and you can alchemize them. Honestly, hun, click off now, because what I'm about to say for those that are there might scare you. It might scare you from doing this work, and I don't want for that to happen. But I'm also not going to tell you what to do I'm just suggesting you click off if you feel like you're not fully ready to take on a bit of a mission, because the mission isn't for you quite yet if you're still feeling overwhelmed. If you're still feeling overwhelmed, what I'm about to say is not for you. It come back to this message once you get to that point of empowerment, because you're headed there. You're breathing life into it. It's possible for you. Now, for those of you brave hearts who are feeling overwhelmed and are choosing not to click off, and for those of us who are here at a point where we've healed and we're living from a life of that demonstration of power and healing that we've done, the crying ghost, as this will pass, is letting you know that the devil that you're going to face, the devils you're going to face, they are out there. So take heed of the joy and the comfort and the peace that you help create. Really do, and you likely already know this if you've done the work to create that peace, so you know how to preserve it. But understand that the peace isn't all that there is. Part of this strength that you have, and part of the power that not only you have, but that because of your strength, the power that you have access to through divinity and through living in a higher, more elevated sense, the peace and the power that those things gain you, why you're given that, is for the purpose of you facing off with devils, is for the purpose of you. It's not just for you to wield it and look pretty. Again, it's not just for you to show it off. It's for you to use it intentionally. It's for you to use it when you know deep down that you're feeling called to speak. So what this card is saying is that it's not just about the peace that you help, that's being created and that you create with this power and strength. It's an understanding that you have to meet the chaos. You have to meet the spaces where there is no peace. And you have to go into those spaces as a person who knows peace and help create it there when you can. My friends, I really hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye. Hello, Pile 2, and welcome to this reading on what you're bringing to life. Now, this first part of the reading is all oracle cards, and it's answering the question of the current circumstance of your life, both so that you can have an idea that this is the right pile for you, but also so that we can gain an understanding of the current circumstance that is your life, and then how that's playing a role in what's coming to life for you. So kind of like how certain things can only grow in the right conditions. This first part of the reading is a look at the conditions that your life, your current circumstance, are creating for what's coming to life. So yeah, this first part, again, all oracle cards, the first card here is answering the question of, okay, well, before I get to that, the way that I'm looking at this first part is like a chemical reaction or like an alchemical process. The basic idea is that there is us as an ingredient, there is life and what's going on beyond our control as the other ingredients. And as you know, we're going through those experiences, the chemical reaction that happens as we meet those things, and that's the current circumstance. So this card over here is the life component, the life ingredient to your current circumstance. This card over here is your component, your own, you as an ingredient in this whole circumstance, and the 3 cards down here being an elaboration on the current circumstance. So the growth card as life's component, as the life ingredient, gives the idea that your current circumstance has been a tumultuous one. Why do I say that? Because growth, when it comes from life, tends to be one that rocks the boat so that we move. But also because of the imagery itself, where it's a spiral, so it's kind of this, I get this sense of like dizziness, so a lack of stability, so it's tumultuous. But also because of the rest of the cards. And so just the life component being a card of growth, the current circumstance, what life is kind of making possible for you is growth, which very often isn't a comfortable experience. The U component is coming up reversed, and when these cards come up reversed, I read the shadow attribute. The card itself is Midas or miser, and so when it's in its shadow attribute, it's read as the miser, which reads hoarding money and emotions, obsessive fear of losing your wealth. If you're familiar with tarot, think what this reminds me of is the 4 of Pentacles, which, and if you don't know tarot, it shows a figure clutching onto coins and turning his back to the world. This idea of hoarding whatever it is that you particularly hoard, despite the cost of that hoarding. And whatever that means for you, it could be like a literal hoarding where it's time to do some spring cleaning, to unclutter your space. Or if it's a hoarding of a person or a relationship or relationships, the current circumstance is one where, because it's the life component is one of growth, you are starting to see where you are at with this hoarding mentality or what practice, the hoarding practice, what it's costing you. You are starting to realize, because it's coming up in its shadow attribute. So the you component of it is a recognition that it's a bit of a fault. Or maybe it's a full recognition that it's like a fault of yours, that you are a hoarder of whatever degree. And again, because of the life component there, that's the tumultuous aspect of that I was picking up on with the growth card earlier, where it's not just that the growth is one that's tumultuous just because life's growth can be. It's because of the way that the growth card was being met by the miser card. The elaboration is kind of, it's basically saying one where you are either in the process of creating a harmony between the mess, the desire for the hoarding, against or with the desire for organization, for things to be cleaner or more systemic or better, for just lack of a better term. Because this first card with the cheeseburger backpack, it's a backpack with a whole bunch of components, and every time it comes up in the show, it's a mess. Like, he opens it and things fall out of it. So they perfectly depicting that whole hoarding thing. It's a bag that enables his hoarding. And Garnet, the character, is all about creating harmony from dynamic energy, because she herself is a fusion of 2 dynamic energies. So she, here in the middle, is you being a representation of you holding these dynamic energies, one of these dynamic energies being represented by the cheeseburger backpack, which is, again, the hoarding tendencies that we're picking up on. And on the other side is Velma, who's a very systemic, very clear-cut, and all about the facts. And I would imagine that Velma Dinkley isn't a very cluttered person, and if she is, I'm sure she has a system to those things. So whatever the case is for you, whether it's that the solution to the hoarding is to clear it all out, or if it's not to clear it all out, then to create a system from that chaos. Because I don't know what your circumstances. It could be like if it's a home, and it's a whole bunch of mess in there, then you are going to benefit from clearing things out and uncluttering your space. But let's say it's like, I don't know, maybe it's a home you don't have a lot of control in, or it's a work environment where you can only move so much. Then it's about working with what you've got, making a system out of the chaos. What's the saying? There's a logic, creating a logic to the chaos. There you go. So yeah, the current circumstance, if that is ringing true for you, if if that sounds familiar, and if that really confirms where you're at right now, welcome to your reading. But again, let's remember that what we're picking up on with these cards is more than just a confirmation that you're in the right place. It's also to understand what this current circumstance is making possible. So let's get into that. So first thing I want to say about what's coming to life for you because of the circumstances that we were talking about is to tread carefully. That definitely seems to be a strong theme with all of these cards. And that's never, I never say anything in these readings to fearmonger. That is never my goal. And it's not about like, oh, tread carefully because if you step wrong, everything's going to mess up and fail. No. But what is really coming across is that what is at the root of this hoarding tendency is a tender subject. Whatever it is. So to continue with the examples that I was saying earlier, if you're in a home where the hoarding isn't your problem, but you live in it, and so you know better than to talk about it or to try to like clean it up because it's just gonna create a whole thing. And if it's not that, like if it's the work environment that I was saying earlier, like there is someone there who is in charge, who just refuses to clear things out. So things outside of your control, like it being a touchy subject, kind of, those are examples, but like the way that it's kind of like, I see it kind of like a little movie in my head where kind of like it's like a mine where if you take a misstep, it's going to it's going to trigger this person, or it's going to trigger some sort of reaction. So you have to tread carefully. Okay, so to get into the individual cards, I want to start from the center, because at the center we have the Tower reversed. And the Tower in and of itself is generally catastrophic energy. And if it's not catastrophic, then it's destructive. And destructive on all, at the whole scale of that word, where at the most literal sense of destruction, we're talking about something being destroyed. But on the other end of the spectrum, we're talking about something being destroyed in the sense of it being deconstructed, taken apart piece by piece. So not like a huge explosion where everything is destroyed into smithereens and it's all like violent. It could be like pulling apart, like a Lego figure, piece by piece, like deconstructing something. So that the Tower upwards is that. Reversed, yeah, reversals can mean a whole bunch of things, but the way that I'm seeing it here, or the way that I'm picking it up, it's more so like it's veiled, like a mine, where you can't clearly see where this destruction is, or where the potential for that, where like, it's either you don't know where to start, or you don't know how to like approach it, or you understand that, again, that misstep could be that destruction. Before I continue, and I'll come back to the tower, I want to move into how there's the Knight of Cups next to the Eight of Swords, because the Knight of Cups is emotional action. And the way that I'm seeing it here, it's emotionally driven action, moving according to how we're feeling, honoring our feelings, giving our feelings enough merit to move according to them. Now, there are times when we don't need to be doing that, when our emotions really shouldn't be given enough merit for them to control our actions. But the Nine of Swords is anxiety. It's the weight of our thoughts, us feeling the weight of our thoughts, and maybe not always buckling under it, but definitely feeling the effect on ourselves because of the weight of our thoughts. So, kind of like this whole issue, right, being something that weighs heavy on your mind, and that's why it's kind of like a growth thing that you're growing through. And so the Knight of Cups next to the card of anxiety is to me communicates, and it's not that you're moving according to that anxiety. It's rather that you're taking your anxiety seriously enough to do something about it. These three cards here, the Tower reversed, and the Tower reversed being that veiled destruction, next to this message of emotional movement, emotionally driven movement. It's careful movement. It's intentional movement. It's movement with an understanding of, if I misstep, there could be consequences that I'm trying to avoid. I'll continue again to the Tower reversed because we're gonna end it with that. But like on the other side of the Tower reversed, there's another message with these two cards. And what I love about these two cards together is that the Six of Cups is generally about the past, about our childhood. Most of the time it's about our childhood or something that happened that long ago, or it could just be a reference to like a long amount of time long ago. So like the past, basically. The Ten of Pentacles is a card of legacy, a card of generations, of how what we're doing right now impacts the growth and of the future, the growth and creation of the future. And so we have the Six of Cups, which is a card about the past and our childhood and the everything that existed before, and we have the Ten of Pentacles, which is about the creation of the future. So these two cards are really driving to the nail to me, that driving the point home to me, there we go, that this is something deep, that what's at the core of your hoarding tendency, whatever it is that you're hoarding, is both something that you've been doing for a long time, either because it was learned behavior or conditional or astrological, whatever the case is, maybe little column A, column C, column B. I don't know why I said those out of order, but the point is, attached to this deconstruction that the Tower is talking about, and I'm going to elaborate on that in a second, is this idea of not only are you dealing with something that you've practically normalized, so it's going to be that much more difficult not only to recognize it but to do something about it, but also understanding that attached to that work of recognizing something that you've normalized is also the weight, the responsibility of understanding that you're doing all of this work, you're clearing all of this up now so that it doesn't affect, or to better, so that there's a more positive impact on your future. You're trying to create a better future for yourself by dealing with what you're dealing with now, which is something that you've been doing either for a long time or since childhood. So on either side of the Tower card, the Tower reverse card, two messages. One being of careful, intentional movement, giving our emotions, very likely our anxiety, enough, taking those things seriously enough, those feelings seriously enough to do something about it. And on the other side, this understanding that this is what you're dealing with is something long standing. So whether it's your own hoarding tendencies that you're dealing with or someone else's, tread carefully there and understand that what you're dealing with is something deep rooted, but that it's necessary for you to confront this because it's important for your future, basically. So if it's like a job thing where, you know, that confrontation might cost you your job, one of two things is going to happen. Either you confront whoever you need to confront, and, you know, let's say best case scenario, they actually do something about it. Great, you created a better future for you and your coworkers. Let's say they do nothing about it, then, or let's say they do nothing about it, or worst case scenario, they fire you for it. Side note, maybe have a job lined up before this confrontation for this reason. But then in that case, you're creating a better future for yourself by exiting out of a space that doesn't take you seriously enough to listen to you about something so serious. And why I know it's so serious is because of the cards that are coming up, the hoarding tendency, how it just continues to come up, and because of the Tower. But okay, so... Oh, okay. And sorry, before I continue, on the other end, if it's like you're dealing with someone else's mess or someone else's hoarding tendencies, then understand as you tread here and as you confront it, that it is deep-rooted, something that's deep-rooted, but that you are, again, you're either creating a better future for yourself by confronting this with this person and, you know, they, best case scenario, do something about it, or worst case scenario, they try to, like, cut you out of their life, or they become worse, or they become someone you don't want to be around. You are creating a better future for yourself by no longer enabling that behavior and in whatever that means. The truth, anything that can be destroyed by the truth should be destroyed. And that is my perfect segue back into the Tower. Because the Tower, although scary, is always necessary. That's the point of the Tower. We have all of these cards in the deck to depict what they do. And sure, there are instances in very specific contexts where we're doing a reading and the Tower upwards could be talking about a calamity, a catastrophe that, you know, didn't need to happen, that isn't necessary because, you know, the Tower is the card of destruction. So sure, there are times when the Tower is talking about a destruction that shouldn't have happened or doesn't need to happen. But here, in this context, it is coming up as something that does need to happen. And I know that because of the two messages we were getting around it, that these two messages were coming. And I love the symmetry of they're on either side of the Tower card, and that they're on each side, the two cards are working in fusion together and to create the message. And then both of these messages are all together talking about a necessary, careful, intentional movement. And so that message, that it's intentional, that it's careful, it supports the idea of the Tower being a necessary destruction. And that it's reversed is then a reference to how maybe no one's tried to do anything about it, or no one succeeded, or you just haven't. It's how this destruction, it is something that it's recognized by everybody who knows about it. It does need to fall. It does need to change. Something does need to change here, but it just hasn't happened, or it hasn't been possible. So it, honestly, whatever the case is, whatever the truth is about why that destruction, why that change hasn't happened, it really is irrelevant here. Whatever happens when you confront this thing, I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, because it does. I'm like, honestly, if this confrontation loses you something that you value, I genuinely am sorry for that. Not because I feel responsible, because I'm not telling you to make any decisions. A tarot reading is just information for you to help you make those decisions. I'm not, don't put that on me. But what I'm trying to say is, like, if the loss is great, like, that does suck. But the thing is, again, what can be destroyed by the truth has no business standing. So if you confronting someone that you're in a relationship with, professional or otherwise, if you speaking the truth, and a truth that is recognized across the board, not just by you but by others, everybody involved, if a truth that can be recognized by all forces the other person to want to sever ties with you, that's all the information that you need about that relationship. So whatever your circumstance, where if that confrontation does cost you that relationship, or it creates, like, sometimes you just can't get away from, because for whatever reason, that's just someone you're close to, that's someone you live with, even if it doesn't completely destroy the relationship and instead just creates a conflict then that you now have to live through with this person, it's necessary, because the alternative is pretty much enabling that hoarding, whether it's yours or that person's. So whether it's confronting that person or confronting yourself, and whether the loss is the relationship with the other person, or the loss of what you're hoarding, the point is, it's meant to be confronted. Now, if it's that you're confronting yourself, be careful with taking what I've been saying about the outcome doesn't matter. The outcome always matters, no matter who I'm the outcome matters for all of you, obviously. But when we're working on ourselves, if it's an internal thing, if it's something that we're confronting within ourselves, one, you're at a tarot reading, which means to some degree you are searching for some type of self-improvement. And two, the growth card that we were talking about earlier, the circumstance that you were in earlier, there is some type of recognition to the fact that where you're currently at is a problem. Commit to, then, that careful, intentional movement through this really difficult stuff. And this is true for all of you. I'm talking to all of you now. Careful, intentional movement that honors those feelings, that desire to want to leave, that desire to want to change things, the desire to clear things up, whatever the case is for you. The point is, okay, so going back to the whole thing that I was saying, where the tower reversed is coming up as a mine, the whole point of the message is to step into that minefield confidently. Now, yes, that does mean, if in your specific circumstance you are dealing with someone, and that someone that can be yourself, if you're dealing with yourself, that this confrontation is going to trigger things, like, that doesn't mean to just step carelessly. Obviously, I haven't said that at all. But it's not that there's not going to be a reaction. It's that the reaction needs to happen. But be prepared for whatever might happen with that reaction. So, if it's you're living with someone and there's a possibility that this person might kick you out because of this, maybe be prepared for that with this confrontation. And like I said earlier, if this confrontation might cost you your job, maybe have a job lined up before this confrontation. The point is that this goes beyond you now. This is where the glorious part of tarot readings, the point of tarot readings, especially how I do them, is that they are just a peek into a possibility. And so none of this should be should only help, if you have been feeling the need to confront someone and that's what you want to do, this reading is a confirmation to do it, because it's for the better good overall. But again, that doesn't guarantee the best outcome. Nothing can guarantee the best outcome. So again, it's tread carefully. It is always about treading very carefully. Again, this first message with these two cards, and the general overall message being to tread carefully, but to step forward confidently if that's what you want to do. So I guess another attached message that I'm getting from that is, if you do decide to do it, do it full chested. Don't half-ass it. Don't maybe prepare what you're going to say, or maybe create the proper circumstances so that, you know, you can talk to this person and say what you want to say. Maybe if you know that they're on a good mood on Mondays, because on Mondays, I don't know, whatever happens on Mondays, they're on a good mood on Mondays. So maybe have this talk with them on Mondays. Whatever the case is, it's just treading carefully and preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Because, to return back to this being a whole choice thing, whether that other person is, and I'm not this is specifically for those of you who are dealing with another person. Not only will this confrontation help you get something off your chest, which can be a relief, and yes, there's the possibility that the confrontation might create the best possible scenario for everyone. Despite those things, detached from those things, the confrontation that you can create with this person may or may not benefit that other person. You may or may not see that. That might not be something that you're privy to. It could be that, like, maybe no one's confronted them that way and they just needed to hear it that way, and they might react in a way that, like, isn't the best for you. But later on down the line, when they've cooled down, they might look back on the whole situation and be like, oh, that was kind of on me. Now, I know that doesn't benefit you. And so this is kind of where I was saying, like, this is the glorious thing about tarot readings and all of this being just a peek at a possibility, where it's like, if that's something that, like, allures to you, or if that's an argument that helps you make that decision, like, there is something to you confronting this person, and this person, maybe not now, but at some point, to some degree, and maybe not to our most to the degree that we'd be satisfied with, there is something about them having some type of recognition of, like, and if it isn't that there's a benefit to it, it might not be immediate, where it's like, maybe you're the first person to say something and you might not get the best thing out of it, but then maybe somewhere down the line another person says something about it and they still don't get the message, and they fire them too, or they get rid of them too, or they push them away too, or whatever. And then maybe somewhere down the line a third person and a fourth person, and it just continues. And then maybe they're so dumb that they just don't get it, but, like, at some point word gets out, like, don't work here because this person just does this thing, or don't do business here, don't go in a relationship with this person because they do things this way. So it's just like, you abiding by the truth and you moving by the truth, it doesn't hurt you. It can only hurt them. You enabling it doesn't hurt them. It can only hurt you. So that's kind of the whole gist here, is if you're enabling it, you're hurting yourself and they get all the benefit of it. But if you confront them about it, yeah, you might lose out on this shitty circumstance that you're kind of sick of anyway. And they may or may not benefit from it. So it's kind of like a slippery slope here, where it's like, maybe the best case scenario is for you to just walk away without the confrontation and without knocking down the tower, because maybe you don't want all of that weight. And so if you're, maybe you want to confront, but you're afraid of things getting out of hand, then maybe this is a confirmation for you not to do those things, because yes, things might blow up in your face, and it might be time for you to quietly make your exit out of here before someone else comes and confront things and makes things a mess before you got the chance to, or, maybe not before you got the chance to, but maybe like after you had decided not to. So the point is that there's a destruction here that is going to happen. It's a Jenga tower, and whether you're the person who pulls the piece that's going to pull the tower down or not, the tower is going to fall whether it's you that pulls it apart or not. Do you want to be around when that happens, or do you want to be the reason it happens? Act accordingly to that answer. Okay, to close out this reading, we have here a mini Divi card, which is just something I've been pulling for these cards just at the end. I just think they're cute. I think they're neat. Rattling Chains Ghost. It's time to be heard. Don't be silenced. Okay, so that's for all of you. If it's about confronting these things. And so this is for all of you this is for those of you who do want to confront this person and know that that's the best thing. Or if you're confronting yourself. It's time to do it. It's time to confront. It's time to, the tower needs to fall. And you can deal with it. You can handle it. Go for it. For now, the rest of you who are part of like Camp C, let's call it, who don't want that confrontation, who you're deciding, I don't want to be the person who pulls that piece out that the tower falls. I'm just going to make my quiet exit. Then make that exit. And that's how you make yourself heard in that situation. Now, yeah, you're not saying anything, and chances are they might not even get it. They might not even see your exit as a communication of what you're feeling. They really might not. But maybe somewhere down the line, when they look back at all of this, if let's say other people confront them with this truth, when this individual looks back, they might understand your departure as connected to those truths that they were confronted with that broke that tower down, that you made your exit before all of that happened. They might understand that. Don't put too much weight on that, to be honest, because honestly, if it's that, like, it doesn't really matter. Just make your exit, move on with your life, go to something better, because this is all a mess anyway, and you clearly don't want any part of that. So, okay, that is the message that I have for you on what is coming to life in your what you're bringing to life. There we go. And so what you're bringing to life is this destruction that needs to happen for this person or for yourself. And that destruction being the confrontation of that hoarding tendency, of the mess, whatever it is that was referring to. And this whole situation is a possibility for growth. That's why life or divinity, whatever you believe in, has put this whole circumstance in motion for you. It's for your own growth. Whether the growth is you being able to get this off your chest, and best case scenario, creating a better circumstance wherever you're at, or exiting out of that shitty scenario so that you can go and find something better. Whatever the case is, it's time to confront it. That's what you're bringing to life, a confrontation, however you want to meet that. I really hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye. Alright, hello Pile 3, and welcome to this reading on what you're bringing to life. Now, before we begin, I do want to say that this one's rough. I've only seen half of the reading so far, and I can tell it's going to be a doozy. This one isn't so much a positive thing that you're bringing to life, because you're engaging in something that isn't super positive. So if you're already uncomfortable, if you're already triggered, if this is just not the message you want to hear, click on out, because the rest of the reading is just going to get worse. This is a reading for people who are ready to confront what they're ready to confront, because they want better than what they're gaining with what you're doing right now. Because what you're currently engaging in, it covers the bases, or it might seem harmless, but actually isn't. But to continue, if you're still here and you're ready for that, let me just say congratulations, because that just proves how tough you are, how cool you are. It just shows how impressive you are. Sure, you're engaging in some stuff that you can recognize isn't the best thing, but you're ready to transcend that, to alchemize yourself into something better. Before I continue, I just want to point out that with this first half, it's all oracle cards, and it's answering the question of the current circumstance in your life. And this part of the reading is meant to act as a confirmation that you're at the right reading, but it's also meant to act as a foundation for the tarot cards which come later, which answers the question of what's coming to life. And each of these cards, or rather each deck, has its specific purpose. So this card here is answering the question of the life component. What life is like. If all of these are ingredients, you and life and everything, like the things outside of your control and the things within your control, if all of these things are ingredients and we put them to cook and they create like a chemical reaction so that we get our desired dish, the desired result, this card is answering the question of the life ingredient, the life component, the things out of our control that life is kind of setting the stage for you. This card over here is answering the question of how your component, how you as an individual and what you're doing is the ingredient to create your current circumstance. And these three cards down here are answering the question of, or elaborating on your current circumstance. And I want to start with the card that's representing you, because it's where it's where the rest of the reading is kind of like stemming from. And we have Thief in its shadow attribute, which reads, stealing money, creative ideas, affection, or other powers you think you lack. Now, I do want to say I spent some time sitting here going through like mental acrobatics to try to justify a way in which you might not be at fault here. But the other cards left no room for that, and also the fact that this is the card that's answering how you yourself are creating your current circumstance. Thief in its shadow attribute, defining you as someone who is stealing. And mind you, there is a light attribute to this card, and I would have read it as such if it would have come up upwards, but it came up reversed. In its light attribute, it reads, sheds light on the potential wealth within you that can never be stolen. Which is a fancy way of saying how when we are robbed, we're reminded of what really matters, which is, if we get mugged and we come out of that with our life, we might mourn what we lost or what we were robbed of, but we might be a little more grateful for being alive because we went through a kind of near-death experience. Not that that's something I'm seeing for you or something that I think that you're doing, so much as I'm just trying to point out how, like, Thief could have come up in its light attribute, in which case I would have interpreted it as you're someone who maybe your abrasiveness, or maybe you're like in your chaotic way, do demonstrate to people things that they should be grateful for, and it wouldn't necessarily have taken on a negative tone, but that it's in its shadow attribute and that it's being met by karmic path really denote to me what you're doing isn't right. And that the karmic path card, which depicts Saturn here, being the card that's answering the question of the life component, what life is setting the stage for. If your ingredient is one that's highlighting a shadow attribute of yours, one that, is calling you a thief to whatever degree you're being a thief in, and you're being met by a karmic path, it's about consequences. There being consequences to what you're doing. Now, the elaboration is a complete contradiction to these two first cards. And what the first two cards are saying versus, or in addition to what the three elaboration cards are saying, together paint a very clear picture to me. So to elaborate, to get into the elaboration, what the elaboration cards are saying is that as of yet, currently, where you're at now, there have been no consequences, or the consequences haven't been as bad as you thought they were going to be. Putting it blankly, you're sitting pretty right now with no consequences. In fact, things might be really good for you right now, where you're kind of you can recognize what you're doing isn't the greatest thing, but beyond that, everything else is great. If it's not that, another thing that could be true is, despite what you're doing or engaging in, you still feel good or guiltless, or even you might even, you're here at a tarot reading, so this is very likely true, you have like a divine connection, something where you have faith in something and it actually gives you some sense of faith, some sense of relief or peace or whatever it is. And if it's not that, if it's not something you have faith in, then it's a relationship that's really stable. It's something that actually provides something for you, whether material or emotional or even just mental, whatever the case is, there's something that you have a connection to or access to right now that's really, really good for you, whether it's something of a matter of faith or an actual relationship that's really good for you. And so far, and for the foreseeable future, it looks like everything's going great and everything's smooth and there's no consequence in sight. And that's the thing, that so the three elaboration cards are saying that, so far as you can see, everything's good and you have nothing to worry about. But outside of your scope, or what the other two cards are saying, is like there's actually things are brewing out, like behind the scenes. You're being defined as what you are, a thief, and you're going to be met with consequences with the karmic path card. And so these two cards are kind of painting the picture of how you're heading into a storm. What's coming to life for you is a storm that's brewing because of the decisions that you've made. Let's continue into the tarot, which elaborates on what you need to know about that. So there's something to be said about what you've lost in the past or what you've experienced in the past, which set the standard for why you're doing what you're doing. There's lack in the past. So we have the Five of Cups reversed. And what I love about the Five of Cups reversed is that it's a very clear definition, because the Five of Cups upwards traditionally depicts 3 cups that are spilled and 2 cups that are upwards. And when the Five of Cups is upwards, there's a focus on the 3 cups that are spilled. So when the Five of Cups is upwards, it's a focus on mourning, a focus on the loss. When it comes up reversed, then it's a prioritization of what still stands. And this card, which is a reference to what still stands despite what has been lost, is on one side of justice, which is reversed. And I'm seeing justice reversed as your efforts, however much effort you're putting into it, to avoid justice, to avoid consequences. Whether it's that you're actually avoiding those consequences or you've just been lucky to not have those consequences find you. So I'll get to that in a second. But I want to get to the other side of the Justice Reverse card, which is the Three of Pentacles. And why that stands out to me, why I'm seeing these two cards, the Five of Cups reversed and the Three of Pentacles, as kind of a together kind of a message to support Justice Reversed, is because of how the Five of Cups depicts those 3 cups which are spilled. And so the spilled cups to me are a reference to either a loss or something that happened in the past for you to feel comfortable or okay doing what it is that you're doing now. Whether it's that what you're doing now, whatever theft we're talking about, whether that's something you were taught to normalize by your caregivers, or because you were never taught any better, or whatever the case is, there's something to how these Three of Pentacles, which is all about collaboration between people, but also what is it's perfectly on theme, because the Three of Pentacles is about our plans and how we put those plans into action. So kind of like how a plan comes to life. And so these two cards, with the Five of Cups reversed, depicting a prioritization of what stands because of what's been lost. And at the same time, we're also having the Three of Pentacles, which is a reference to the efforts that you put in, or rather the reactions that you've had to that loss, how you react to that loss, which is this planning that you do, whether it's, and however elaborate that planning is, whether it's that you actually scheme up the ways that you steal, or just the way that you go about doing what you do. What I like about this depiction in the Three of Pentacles is that they're meant to be sort of depicted as criminals, and I say that because we have the gun there, and it looks like they're planning a heist, like they're trying to steal from a bank. So again, that reference of like stealing to kind of confirm how we can't really run away from the fact that this whole reading is defining you as such. But beyond that confirmation, the Three of Pentacles really is about elaborate planning, elaborate efforts. In one way, I kind of see it as like always looking over your shoulder, always being worried that the consequence is going to fall. And the Five of Pentacles reversed, talking about how there actually is more than... Okay. Because it feels like what these cards are basically getting across to me is you feel compelled to do it. Whether it's like, you know, you're kind of a klepto, where you really do feel a need to just grab something and take it with you, or you feel like you don't have a choice. It could be that you're stealing out of necessity. You're stealing because you know you got to make ends meet. You don't have as much money to get all the things that you need to get. And so there's like the Three of Pentacles is that effort that you put in, not only to succeed in stealing, but the effort that you put in to justify it. And the Five of Cups reversed is highlighting to me that there's more to it than what you're telling yourself. There is actually some truth to the fact that what you're currently telling yourself is all that there is isn't all that there is, because the Five of Cups reversed is prioritizing the things that still stand, the things that don't make you feel guilty or don't make you feel like there's how all of this situation makes you feel, where you feel like you need to do this, and then there's the peace outside of it. And just that justice is there in the center. The thing about justice, the way that I see justice here, I don't see the reversal as a blockage of... I mean, yeah, sure, it's a blockage of justice. You know, you blocking those consequences, or them just being blocked from you just by mere luck, or just how things are. The thing about justice, though, is that it's always gonna come out on top. Like, in some way, shape, or form, the truth will fizzle out and float to the top and reveal itself. It's just always how it plays out. As a tarot reader, as someone who spent some time just kind of looking at things pan out, it really kind of does play out that way. And so I'm seeing here these cards really saying there's only so much you can do to run away from these consequences. You're only going to be able to run away from these consequences for so long. And that's what these three cards are saying. The next two cards are delivering another message, which is basically you need to start listening or trusting whatever guidance you're receiving out of this scenario. Because not only do we have two eights next to each other, one reversed and then the next one being upwards, a shift from mental swords energy into intuitive wands energy, but the individual cards themselves very clearly state, A, you do have every capacity and access to a way out of your current circumstance, and B, you are being given guidance, whether it's intuitive or you are actually receiving actual help, tangible help to get out of this situation that you can take advantage of to help you get out of this. And that's what these two cards are saying individually. The Eight of Swords upwards depicts in oppression that we have all of the tools to get ourselves out of, but that we choose to remain in out of comfort. So then reversed, it's that comfort no longer being something that we can use as a justification to stay here. It might be that that comfort no longer exists, and so we then need to move out of this like self-made prison. And the Eight of Wands upwards is a card of intuitive messages coming through clearly, is one way to interpret it, is how I'm interpreting it here. So these two cards together really stating it's time to get out of here. We're providing guidance out of it, however true that is for you, and it's time for you to take advantage of it. Because again, I mean, okay, we have you being represented by all of these minor cards, and then the one major is justice itself, and it's reversed for now, but again, it's only a matter of time, and you're being guided out of where you're being guided out of, either before things get worse, or to avoid a consequence that's coming all together. Whatever is true for you, however you're kind of intuiting that's true for you. To close out this reading, this mini Divi card, it reads, "The ghost family. Stick close to the ones you love for maximum comfort." So, okay. Kind of earlier, how I was saying with the elaboration cards where, there might be this relationship that gains you a lot, and that you're sitting comfortably in now. If they are who you are stealing from, you need to make your peace with the consequence that comes with that. Because any way you cut it, there's no way to justify you stealing from someone who trusted you. That's just where I'm going to leave it, if that's true for you. If it's not that you're stealing from someone who trusts you, either people close to you or your actual family. So I'm interpreting family here as either your actual literal family or found family, the people you consider your family. There are people around you that either are willing to help you get out of this situation where you feel the need to steal, or this card is basically saying you can rely on them to some degree, and it's really you're gonna have to intuit that. Use your discernment there. So kind of like the Eight of Wands could be like your family could be what the Eight of Wands is talking about, where like there is someone in your close vicinity that is actually offering help to you, is actually offering a way out, and it's time for you to take advantage of that. And if it's not that, then what this card is saying is that you can rely on the people around you for help, and that you need to start asking for it because the consequences are coming, and you kind of have to make your peace with that. My friend, I really, really hope that this helped. Godspeed, truly. And I really hope that I didn't scare you away. I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye.